They taught me that the most dangerous lies are always wrapped in love. Tonight, that beautiful lie turns into a nightmare. If you believe the person sitting next to you truly loves you, listen to my story for the next 20 minutes, because you might be living a perfect illusion just like I was. They say when life looks too perfect, you should look closer at the shadows. My wedding was just weeks away, and I was deeply in love with Victoria Hayes. She was beautiful, brilliant, and the heiress to the massive Hayes corporate empire. One evening, during our lavish engagement celebration, Victoria walked up to the stage, smiled warmly, and handed me a sleek, white envelope. "What is this, Victoria?" I asked, laughing softly as I took it. She wrapped her arms around my neck and whispered into the microphone, "It's our future, Ethan. A private island entirely registered in your name." The ballroom erupted in applause. Victoria's father, Charles Hayes, stepped forward, placing a proud hand on my shoulder. "Ethan is a man of integrity," Charles announced to the crowd of investors and journalists. "My daughter has chosen wisely." To Ethan and Victoria. Everyone raised their glasses, admiring what looked like the ultimate proof of devotion. But amidst the glittering lights, I noticed small cracks. Victoria kept checking her phone, her fingers trembling slightly whenever Ryan Brooks' name flashed on her screen. Ryan was her childhood friend and business partner, but tonight, his presence felt heavy. In a quiet corner of the hall, my younger brother Liam pulled me aside. "Ethan, does any of this feel right to you?" he asked, his voice low and serious. "What do you mean, Liam?" "She just gifted me an island," I replied, dismissing his concern. "When people give you too much, they usually want something back," Liam warned. I saw Ryan whispering to her earlier. "Something is wrong." I brushed his warnings away. I trusted her blindly. But later that night, while searching for wedding documents in the study, I overheard muffled voices coming from the terrace. It was Victoria and Ryan. Ryan sounded furious. "Victoria, putting the island in his name is too risky. What if this backfires?" Victoria silenced him, her voice cold and calculating. "Relax, Ryan. If Ethan signs after the wedding, everything becomes ours. He won't suspect a thing." Hearing those words, the blood in my veins turned to ice. For the first time, a terrifying fear entered my heart. I couldn't sleep that night. The echo of Victoria's voice haunted me. Desperate for answers, I reached out to Olivia Reed, an investigative journalist and an old friend. We met at a quiet, dimly lit coffee shop the next morning. I slid copies of the property documents across the table. "Olivia, I need you to look into the legal structure of this island. Something isn't right." Olivia scanned the paperwork, her expression turning grim. "Give me 24 hours, Ethan. I'll run it through my corporate sources." When she called me back the next day, her voice was trembling. We met again and she laid out a thick file of financial records before me. "Ethan, Victoria is using you," Olivia said directly. "That island isn't a romantic gift. It is a financial shield connected to a massive network of shell companies used for money laundering and illegal asset transfers." My heart sank. "And what does Ryan have to do with this?" Olivia sighed heavily. "Ryan and Victoria have been secretly involved for years. This entire wedding is a setup. They are positioning you to take the legal fall for their corporate crimes." Refusing to believe it, I asked Noah, a tech genius, to dig deeper into their private servers. What he found shattered my remaining hope. Noah pointed at the flashing numbers on his monitor. "Look here, Ethan. The moment you sign the post-wedding documents, millions of dollars in liability will be transferred to you, and the assets will immediately move to an offshore account. If the authorities close in, you go to prison. They walk away free." That night, I stood outside the living room as Victoria spoke on the phone. "Once Ethan signs everything, he'll be useless, Ryan," she laughed softly. "Then we can finally disappear." My world completely collapsed. I stared at our wedding photo on the wall, realizing the woman smiling beside me had never loved me at all. Heartbroken and trapped, I realized I couldn't confront her. The powerful Hayes family would destroy me before I could ever speak the truth. I was a pawn in a game where I was meant to lose. That's when my childhood friend, Grace Miller, stepped in. Seeing my despair, she gripped my hands tightly. "Ethan, if you stay, they will ruin your life or kill you. You need to leave. You need to disappear." "How can I run, Grace?" I asked, utterly defeated. "My name is on all the legal paperwork." Grace looked at me with absolute certainty. "Then we make Ethan Carter disappear forever. The only way to get your freedom back is to die." With Noah and Olivia's help, we orchestrated a desperate plan. 2 days before the wedding, we staged a violent boating accident near the rugged cliffs of the island. We left just enough planted evidence, my broken watch, a torn jacket, to convince the authorities that I had drowned in the rough currents. The emotional weight was crushing. I could only tell one person the truth. I met Liam in secret, hugging him tightly as tears burned my eyes. "Take care of yourself, Liam. Don't look for me." Liam gripped my shoulder, crying. "Go, brother. Get out of their trap. I'll handle things here." On the morning of the wedding, the headlines shocked the city. "The groom is dead." From a hidden apartment, I watched a live video feed of Victoria's house. People were mourning, but when the camera zoomed in on Victoria's face, there was no grief. She took a slow, deep breath, and a subtle wave of relief washed over her features. That single expression destroyed the last piece of love I had for her. The sorrow vanished. Only a thirst for justice remained. For the next several months, the world believed I was a ghost. I lived quietly in another country under a completely different identity. Every morning began exactly the same way: a cup of black coffee, an encrypted laptop, and updates from the people helping me. One morning Olivia called. "Ethan, you need to see this." I opened the media link she sent. Victoria was standing before a crowd of flashing cameras, wiping tears from her eyes. "I loved Ethan with all my heart," she sobbed into the microphones. "His loss has left an emptiness that can never be filled." My jaw tightened as I watched the screen. The performance was flawless. The public pitied her. The investors believed her. "She's too good," Olivia remarked over the phone. "Does it still hurt to watch her?" I stared at the screen, my voice devoid of emotion. "Less every day." But the truth was, the anger was boiling inside me. Thankfully, cracks were starting to appear inside the Hayes empire. Detective Marcus Hill had quietly started investigating the suspicious transaction history connected to the island. Even Victoria's younger sister, Amelia, was growing suspicious. She called me on an encrypted line one evening, unaware I was alive but looking for advice. "Ethan's death changed my sister," Amelia said, her voice shaking. "She keeps hiding financial ledgers and she's always arguing with Ryan. Something feels dirty." "People reveal who they truly are when they think no one is watching, Amelia," I replied quietly. Pressure was mounting. Charles Hayes discovered a massive deficit in the corporate accounts. During a leaked board meeting video, Charles slammed his fists on the table, shouting, "Where is the missing money? Someone answer me." Amidst the chaos, Noah called me unexpectedly, his voice racing with adrenaline. "Ethan, I intercepted an encrypted audio file from Ryan's phone. You need to hear this right now." He pressed play. Ryan's voice emerged from the speakers. "If Ethan dies before questions start, everything becomes easier. No legal complications, no testimony, no risks." Then came Victoria's cold response. "I know, Ryan. Just do it." Hearing them openly discuss how my death benefited them made my blood run cold. My anger dissolved into absolute certainty. The game had changed. They thought a dead man couldn't fight back. They were wrong. Months of waiting and gathering evidence had finally brought us to this moment. Tonight, Victoria was hosting a massive corporate gala to celebrate a high-profile business merger. Every major investor, executive, and journalist in the city was in that ballroom. I sat inside a secure tech room with Noah, Olivia, and Grace, watching the live footage from the event. The room was breathtakingly luxurious, filled with laughter and expensive champagne. Noah checked his monitor. 30 seconds until launch. Olivia folded her arms, looking at me. "Are you ready for the fallout, Ethan?" I looked at Victoria on the screen, looking radiant and untouchable in her gown. "No," I admitted honestly. Grace smiled gently, squeezing my shoulder. "Good. That means you're still human." The crowd applauded as Victoria stepped up to the podium. "Thank you all for joining us tonight," she spoke confidently. Charles smiled from the front row and Ryan stood nearby, celebrating with wealthy clients. 10 seconds, Noah whispered, his finger hovering over the keyboard. I took a deep breath. Years of lies, months of hiding, it all came down to this 1 second. Noah pressed the key. Instantly, every single screen in the massive ballroom went completely black. The music cut out and confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. Victoria frowned, tapping the microphone. "What's going on with the feed?" Then my face flashed across every monitor in the room. The entire ballroom froze. Guests gasped. A glass shattered as someone dropped it in shock. Charles stood up instantly, his eyes wide. Ryan looked as if he had just seen a ghost, his face draining of color. Victoria turned completely pale, backing away from the podium. Then my recorded message began to play, echoing through the speakers. "Hello everyone." The silence in the room was suffocating. I stared directly into the camera lens. Victoria, thank you for teaching me that the most dangerous lies are wrapped in love. Victoria visibly flinched. She understood the message instantly. She knew I was alive and she knew I knew everything. Suddenly, the video shifted to show the official bank transfers, forged signatures, and shell company documents. Every piece of fraud was displayed clearly for the world to see. An investor stood up, shouting, "What is the meaning of this? Is this real?" Then the audio recording of Ryan and Victoria played. If Ethan dies, everything becomes easier. A wave of absolute horror swept through the crowd. Journalists immediately rushed to make calls. Ryan panicked and sprinted toward the exit doors, but the moment he pushed them open, Detective Marcus Hill and a team of federal officers were waiting. "Ryan Brooks, you need to come with us," Marcus said calmly, clicking the handcuffs into place. Inside, Charles stared at the screen in pure devastation. "She lied to me," he whispered, realizing his own daughter had ruined his empire. The final part of my message played. "I trusted the wrong people. Tonight, the truth speaks for itself." The screens went dark and utter chaos exploded. Victoria broke down completely, screaming, "No. This isn't what it looks like." But nobody was listening anymore. The untouchable Victoria Hayes had lost everything, and the whole world was watching. The weeks following the gala were brutal and unforgiving. Every morning brought new headlines, deeper investigations, and severe consequences for the Hayes family. Ryan was formally charged with corporate fraud and conspiracy, and Charles publicly distanced himself from the scandal to salvage what little reputation he had left. I sat in my apartment watching the news clip of a disgraced Ryan being led into a courthouse. For the first time in months I felt no anger. Just a profound sense of exhaustion. Liam called me later that afternoon, his voice filled with relief. "It's finally over, Ethan. We got justice." "No," I replied softly. "Not until the emotional dust settles." A few days later, Amelia requested a meeting. We sat at a quiet restaurant in the outskirts of the city. The moment she saw me, tears welled up in her eyes. "Ethan, I'm so incredibly sorry. I should have noticed what my sister was doing." I reached across the table and gently touched her hand. "You don't owe me an apology, Amelia. You trusted your family just like I did." "I never wanted any of this to happen to you," she cried. When we parted ways, I felt a heavy burden lift from my chest. Amelia wasn't part of the lie. Some wounds were real, but others were just casualties of Victoria's greed. Then, the message I had been anticipating finally arrived. Victoria wanted to meet me one last time before her trial. I stared at the text for hours, weighing my options. Ultimately, I agreed. We met in a sterile, private visitor's room overlooking the gray water of the harbor. When the door opened and she stepped inside, I barely recognized her. The proud, untouchable billionaire heiress was gone. Her hair was unkempt, her eyes hollow, and her expensive clothes replaced by a simple jacket. She sat across from me, the silence between us stretching like an open grave. Finally, she whispered, "You look well, Ethan." "I am," I replied, my voice calm and even. A painful, broken smile crossed her face. "I'm glad." She looked directly into my eyes, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I loved you, Ethan. I swear to you, despite everything, my love for you was real." "Then why did you do it, Victoria? Why destroy us?" I asked, the question hanging heavily in the cold air. She lowered her head, sobbing. "I was terrified of losing everything. My father's approval, the empire, the wealth. Greed and fear consumed me. I kept telling myself I would fix it later, that I would protect you somehow. But you didn't," I said, looking at her with nothing but pity. "And in trying to save your empire, you lost your soul." She wiped her eyes, her voice cracking completely. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for the lies, Ethan. I'm sorry for destroying us." I listened quietly. There was no anger left in me. No shouting, no desire to hurt her back. What stood before me wasn't a villain anymore. It was just a broken, pathetic person facing the reality of her choices. Eventually I stood up to leave. Victoria looked up desperately. "Can you ever forgive me?" I looked at her one last time, choosing my words with care. "I don't hate you, Victoria. But I can never go back to who I was." The tiny spark of hope in her eyes vanished. I walked out of the room, leaving her behind. I carried no hatred, no anger, and no forgiveness. Only acceptance. 1 year later, my life looked entirely different from the wreckage of the past. I stood on the sandy shore of the island, watching the golden waves crash gently against the beach. The cool wind felt incredibly liberating against my skin. A familiar voice called out from behind me. "Ethan." You always hide in the farthest corner of this place. I turned around and smiled as Liam walked across the sand toward me. It's a beautiful island, Liam. It gives me space to breathe. Well, it's officially and legally yours now, Liam laughed, throwing his arm around my shoulder. Many financial advisors had urged me to sell the island for millions, but I refused. Instead, I transformed the property into something meaningful, a sanctuary and retreat center for people trying to rebuild their lives after facing severe betrayal, loss, and trauma. The very place that was meant to be my prison had become a haven of healing for others. And in helping them heal, I healed myself. Later that afternoon, Grace, Olivia, and Noah joined us on the veranda. We sat together, sharing a meal and laughing under the clear blue sky. These 4 individuals had become my true family. We weren't bound by blood, but by the fire of survival. Olivia raised her glass to the sky. To second chances and to a future built on truth. To second chances, we all repeated, our voices echoing over the water. As the sun began to sink into the ocean, Noah handed me a small envelope. The mail boat just arrived. This one has no return address, but the handwriting is familiar. I took the envelope and walked to the edge of the pier. The handwriting belonged to Victoria. I opened it and read the single page inside. There were no excuses, no long pleas for sympathy. Just a simple paragraph. Ethan, I am serving my time now, far away from the cameras and the wealth. I am learning to live with the truth. I don't ask for your forgiveness because I don't deserve it. I only write this to wish you genuine peace. I hope you find the happiness I was too blind to give you. Be well. I read the lines twice, feeling the final knot in my chest untie itself. I walked back to my cabin, opened a small wooden chest, and placed her letter inside with my old photographs and memories. I closed the lid firmly. Not with sadness and not with resentment. Just with finality. When I stepped back outside, the sunset had painted the entire horizon in vibrant shades of gold and deep crimson. The ocean stretched endlessly before me, open and limitless. I smiled. For the first time in my life I felt completely free. I once believed that losing Victoria would destroy me, that my life would end with the betrayal. But looking back, losing her was the very thing that saved me. It forced me to strip away the illusions, to stand on my own feet, and to grow into someone unbroken. As I looked out toward the endless horizon, I finally understood the greatest truth of my journey. Surviving the betrayal was never the true victory. Becoming someone stronger was.